Couple seconds for it to propagate, and now we are live. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So today we have an individual that is going to be it's going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to talk about multiple different things. We're going to talk about everything from like health. We're going to talk about wealth. We're going to talk about nutrition. So essentially, obviously we're talking about multiple different pillars, right? So I'm going to name this particular person, right? The pillar boss. So Jack, the floor is yours. I want you to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what would you like to talk about today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. It is a pleasure to meet with you and be able to talk to you. My name is Vitale. I am a health and wellness lifestyle management coach. So I have been observing this industry for honestly as long as I can remember. And the one thing I've always watched is there is a consistent struggle and a consistent cycle that everybody continues to go through that pushes them to fall off. And it kills me to see that. I've faced a lot of challenges in my short lifetime. Surprisingly, I've squeezed a lot of stuff in already. And I've learned how to overcome several obstacles. And it was through the practice of becoming the pillar boss and identifying that there are 6 pillars that make up our well-being. And we need to tend to those 6 pillars as consistently as possible. That's what's going to help us stay grounded, clear-headed, committed, accountable when life starts getting crazy. And that's how you accomplish your personal goals, your fitness goals, your nutrition goals. And that is the aspiration and the passion that I thrive to make known within my company.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously, like with these 6 pillars, I mean, how did you even come up with this concept? Because I mean, obviously, they could have been any different things, any different variations, but why did you pick those particular 6?
Oof. Honestly, a lot of observation on myself. My body and my brain started to crave specific things. Like I would have racing, severe thoughts, and I would sit down and start journaling, and immediately it felt like I was floating on air. If I'm angry, I would go for a run, and next thing I knew, I was walking on air. If I was feeling bloated or depressed about how my body looked, I would eat every color of the rainbow every day, walking on air. And those are just 3 examples of, all right, so I saw that as a spiritual component, journaling, food as a nutritional component, working out as a physical component. Clearly, those things are things we need to make up our well-being. Occupational, whether we want it to be or not, is equally as important in there. So there's your 4th pillar. Intellectually, we should be challenging ourselves. There is nothing more fun than learning something new, reading a book. My personal thing is learning Spanish right now. So I think it's important that we identify something like that. It helps our brain get distracted from all of the chaos. And then emotionally, a lot of people fulfill this pillar of their life by seeing family, friends, and those connections are amazing. But what individuals don't realize, and now this was through my own observancies, I need these things. I need these things to live and breathe. So for a year before I brought this to the world, I was practicing it on my clients, and they became clear-headed. They didn't fall off anymore. They were consistent. They were elevating faster. They were achieving all their goals. They were making bigger strides in their occupation. And it's because they were bringing mindfulness to all the little things they're already doing, but actually giving their all into it. And that's when I grasped, all right, this isn't just let's wake up and work towards these 3 goals. It's let's change our life. Let's live it. Let's breathe it. Let's eat it. Let's do it. And make it effortless.
So like let's pull these apart, right? So obviously, as being a guest on the show, I love to do my due diligence. I kind of dig into your history a little bit. So I kind of like connect the dots, right? So I would say from a parental standpoint, I would say your mom was probably your biggest influence as far as you becoming a foodie. And I'm saying this because of her love for her Vermont waffles, right? Every annual Christmas doing the gingerbread houses, and your
Yes.
mom consistently talks about food and posts about food. So would I be right to say that some of your nutritional pillars are coming from your mom?
Oh, I would say 90% of it stems straight from her.
Hmm. Hmm.
Straight
So,
from her.
so I think that's interesting. So let's say like, I think one of your dishes, right? Let's say if I was talking to your mom, I say, okay, Lynn, what is Jack's favorite dish? Which one would she say?
Ooh. We talking comfort meals or are we talking a healthy meal now?
Well, I was trying to steer you into like I think it was one of your videos that you were talking about was it was a fat burning stir fry, a 5 minute
Yes,
meal that
honestly,
tastes
that
like a
was going to
five
be my
course.
answer was
Okay.
my chicken and rice stir fry. That is my go-to. Um, and she did show me that one actually. Onions are a huge fat burner. I learned that from her. I learned how to properly cook vegetables so that they're not overburnt and then you're losing all the nutrients within the vegetables from her. I learned that you need to have a variety of colors in there. And I learned that all of these things help clear out antioxidants in your body. My mom actually had cancer, so she really hopped onto the nutrition bandwagon then. So then you learned about the detoxifying foods, the enzymatic, high enzymatic foods, the high quality versus the low quality. And my biggest journey through all of the information I learned from her in the nutritional aspect was not only making it healthy, but also making it taste good.
Hmm.
That's the biggest struggle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, like let's go to another pillar and flip it on the other side of your family, right? So let's talk about Gabe, your dad, right? So I would say you probably got majority of your adrenaline junkiness or your physical side from your dad. I mean, I think it was one time you guys went to New York and you did like a bicycle marathon. You guys went skiing, snowboarding, you did all these different things. Would I be correct if I'm saying that?
Yes, absolutely. So as a child, I was fortunate enough to be able to travel to Vermont from the age of 4 years old all the way until I still am, but now I'm fortunately going out west, doing awesome things. That was a huge thing stemming from my father. My sports, there is nobody who's screaming at me more on the sideline than my father. And then my senior year of high school, he had been doing this 55-mile, 5 borough bike marathon through New York City for every single year. And I'm begging him, Dad, please let me do it with you. Please let me do it with you. And he literally made me suffer. I had to go spinning with him twice a day, every single day for months just to do this 55-mile bike ride with him. And it was hard. It was enlightening. It was beautiful. And that's one of the great things about the physical pillar is instead of just going out there and biking and doing that specific goal with him to quote unquote lose weight or whatever it was, I was also bonding with my dad. I was creating a beautiful experience with him. I was growing with him. I was learning more about him and him about me. We were accessing parts in each other's minds that we didn't know created. Like even just the eye contact as we're on the bike going over the Verrazano Bridge, like we're like, are you ready to do this? Like, let's go down. We're about to cross the finish line. And it's that moment, those feelings that these pillars and assigning tasks to these specific pillars are supposed to bring you to. It's to have that moment.
Hmm. So, I mean, right off the bat, we talked about like two core pillars, and the irony is those two core pillars essentially coming from your parents. So, I want to kind of talk about like the earlier version of yourself, like as a kid growing up. Did you think you would be doing what you're doing right now?
It's funny. I did younger and then it changed in the middle. So I 7, 8 years old, I had an imaginary game in my gym called 35 levels. And you had to run around this like staircase and pole in my gym 35 times in order to accomplish the day. And I would make every single one of my friends play that. So instead of like teacher or schoolhouse that you played as a kid, that was my game. Then it grew into psychology.
Hmm.
And then as I was in school, sitting down with my counselor, she was like, well, is this what you want to do? And I was like, no, I've always loved like fitness. Like I want to be in the health and wellness sector. And then when I got out of there and I started working in it and you're talking to everyone, you're like, I'm a psychologist too. So I guess I became both.
I think that's definitely interesting, right? 'Cause I mean, obviously, psychology kind of pulls into like your intellectual pillar, right? So I want to kind of talk about. I think there was a video on TikTok or Instagram, and you was talking about take five, do journaling every single day. So, like, how does that kind of help you kind of stay on track with not only with your business, but with obviously staying in line with your own pillars?
So I think my greatest strength and my biggest weakness is time.
Mm.
And keeping track of it and seeing how far I've evolved. And we neglect to see how much we can accomplish in a small amount of time and how fast time goes by. journaling for me helps me keep track of those days. So it's weird. I journal for a few reasons. I journal for my own intellectual. So I start off and I'll talk about what's going on in my life recently, the past few days, right now, today, what I'm expecting coming forward. And then I get into how it feels. And there's this certain point right in my writing where I'm really focused. I know what I'm about to write next. I know what I'm about to write. And then it just goes. And I'll be 4 pages over and have no idea what I wrote. And my mind's not thinking about anything. And I'm like, my hands are tingling in the best way possible. And that's when I know like my intellectual has been unlocked. I'm loose again. I'm thinking clearly, flowing. And next thing I know, I'm coming up with 1,000 ideas for my company again, and my physical, my nutritional, and I'm happy. Like, oh, it's so enlightening.
I think it's definitely fascinating, right? So, I mean, obviously, like we're on number 3, we're talking about the intellectual pillar, right? But ideally, you're saying that intellectual essentially is the prime that affects both your physical and your nutritional, or is it the nutritional affects the physical and the intellectual? Like, if you had to put them in sequence, which one would come first?
So here is my great analogy. I want you to picture a flower, okay? A flower needs sun, it needs soil, it needs water, it needs oxygen. It needs other things, but let's say that's the 4 things a flower needs to blossom and flourish to the best flower you've ever seen in the world. If one of those 4 things is not being 100% fulfilled for that flower, the other 3 things are not going to function at their maximum potential either. So I cannot sit here and tell you that one pillar is more important than the other. Every single one is equally important. And a prime example is my occupational pillar. It weighs on everybody's shoulders so much more heavily than their physical does. But no matter what, and I am a workaholic, I love working. So I have to force myself at 8:00, no matter what, to shut my computer because I need to do something for my intellectual, my spiritual. I need to stretch for my physical. And those are my tasks to ground myself. And I have to force myself. But I feel whole again. I don't feel like I'm sucking the life out of me, even though part of it feels good. I know I shouldn't be doing that. And that's why you have to hold yourself accountable with, all right, I didn't do my 5 things. Even though I feel good, I still need to do them. And then I feel better.
I think it's interesting that, you know, out of all those things, I mean, you kind of reference the occupational pillar multiple different times, which kind of brings me into I mean, the article that you brought up was on your blog, right? I mean, I think the title of it was "Let's Compare Wellness to Flowers" was the name of the article, right? So I think part of you coming on this show was part of your occupational pillar when you made like a partnership with Sam. So those that remember, I've interviewed Sam, better known as the IV boss, I think it was last year or something along those lines. So I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you get in frequency with him? How are you guys working together? Because I mean, obviously he does IVs, he does all these different things as infusing into someone, and then you're more so on the nutrition and the coaching side. How does that partnership work?
Right. So Sam Tejada owns a company called Liquivita, and that is a very functional medicine-based company. They do IVs, blood panels, metabolic journeys, you name it, they have it. But their approach is functional, and they want to look at the root of the issue, and they want to solve it without throwing just a Band-Aid over it. Sam and I share a singular passion, and it is simply that we want to help as many people as possible. And I don't even think it was a conversation of like, hey, we should do this. It was more like, Jack, I'm bringing all these people through metabolic journeys, and they're getting this beautiful information about themselves, about their blood, about their resting metabolic rate, what their body fat percentage is. And, you know, these apps and these devices we're using, they have set up protocols that they can follow, but like, they need a hands-on journey and experience and know how to utilize this information. And that's where I'm like, well, I need this information to help people to their maximum potential and get there. And so if I get this information and then I can put their whole customized plan together, these people, we're going to be creating rockets through the sky. So it was inevitable that we both just kind of looked at the situation and said, all right, well, you know, the programs you're getting your individuals on need the proper assistance, and we share the same passion and we have the same functional approach. So let's run with it and see how we can collide our businesses together potentially.
I think it's definitely fascinating because I remember that interview with him, and obviously I'm interviewing you right now. So like, there's obviously a gap, right? And I would think that that gap essentially starts with the nutrition, which kind of brings me to like your lifestyle nutrition plans. Because ideally, if someone is eating the right nutrition and they're getting the right nutrients, technically speaking, they may not need the IV infusions. Is that a correct statement, or am I going in the wrong direction there?
So don't quote me on any percentages because I can't remember the hard percentage or statistic of it. But the amount of people that are overweight or obese are still considered malnourished because they're not getting essential nutrients. So it's fried foods, simple sugars that have absolutely no additional antioxidants to it, nothing natural to it. And that's all these individuals are eating. So even though they're getting a ton of calories and a ton of carbs, fats, proteins, it's not good sources and it's all packing on. And none of that has the micronutrients, which is your vitamins, your minerals. So even though they're heavy, they are actually malnourished. And so Sam's blood tests will then go in. And that's what I love about it, is it goes down to a microscopic level. It's not just saying like, all right, your hormones are at this is at that. Like they are breaking each chemical, he could explain it better, but each result that they're getting down into smaller fragments is what they say. And finding the root of what is causing this malnourishment, what is causing this area of your body to have more messengers than this one area and not make them work in accordance together. And then I'm able to look at that information and say, okay, well, we're lacking this enzyme, or you need more vitamin C. So we're going to include an abundance of these specific color vegetables into this meal, and this meal. So based on all of that information, then I'm able to look at it and say, all right, we need to include healthy foods. We don't want it to be overwhelming. We want to make it delicious. You might be an individual who's traveling 24/7. So now I need to think of stuff that's on the go too. And are you gluten-free, dairy-free? Do you not eat meat? So all of those aspects get taken into consideration. Then on top of that, I get to find out, what kind of job do you work? There comes the occupational pillar. How much are you working out? Do you sit at a desk? Do you stand at your desk? That will also play into the decisions I make for their customized plan, which is leading us back to showing how all of them count as one.
Yeah. I think it's definitely phenomenal. I mean, obviously, kind of like coming from a growth strategy standpoint, when it comes to business, most coaches, they may have like the hand holding, you come into the gym, you will lead with a nutrition plan. But, based upon your mom's post, not only is she super proud of you, but you also created an app, right? So I want to talk about like the app, how this app infuses to what you're doing and how you're taking the coaching to the next level. So you have a subscription-based app. So if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, okay, how do I get access to this app and what am I getting access to?
Okay, so I created this app during the COVID times. So my goal behind the app was I want to be able to help as many people as possible. So I'm going to create the best resources possible. My app provides fitness customized services, nutrition customized services, and then your own customized 6 pillars of wellness plan. So how an individual gets started with me is they'll schedule a free consultation through my website or through my app if they download just the Vitale app through the App Store. And then we will hop on there. They will be asked about 3 to 4 questions about their 6 pillars of wellness in advance so that I'm able to make a graph for them about how we can elevate them to completing all 6 pillars every single day. Then I'll present to them that graph and we will sit down together. We'll go through a questionnaire. I'll be able to figure out what their top 3 goals are. Why? What are their wants, their needs? What's their lifestyle like? Any specific concerns that should be addressed. Based on all of that, I pretty much know everything about you and create your customized plan. Every single week throughout your journey, you will then go onto the app. You have your personalized dashboard. You have your 6 pillars of wellness plan. You have your workout plan or your nutrition plan, whichever one you decide to go with. And then you can access my movers mob, an 18-page nutrition guide that I made for any mover that signs on with me. And they schedule their weekly check-ins there. So every Friday we hop on the phone. This is that accountability factor for 15 minutes. We go over their progress. And then I make modifications to their following program based on that information I receive. This is, however, a little bit of a higher ticket pricing service. And I understand that not everybody may be as dedicated to putting forth that high ticket and then maybe wants to start out more easily. So what Jack Vitale Company is going to be doing as of September is quarterly challenges with subscription-based programs that people can join into, and they can start brushing into the 6 pillars of wellness journey. And when they're ready to dive deeper, myself is here, and another trainer that I'm hoping to take on to my team soon will be 6 pillar certified and working within the app as well.
I mean, there's so much different layers and onions to unpack based upon what you said, right? So I want to kind of start with like the time traveling aspect, right? I mean, obviously, like having this app in the coaching space is a profound thing because most coaches don't have that. So I want you to kind of think about if you could time travel back anytime in like the fact, the last few years you've been working on the project of the app and your business. Is there anything that you would like to go back to and change if you could do it all over again to get you to where you are a lot faster?
Move faster. I wish I moved faster. I don't think I could have moved much faster. I think if I said I wanted to go back and change things, it's only because of what I've learned along the way. And that's part of the journey, right? Is learning along the way, making mistakes, learning from them, adjusting, meeting new people. Because of one mistake you make, you might meet someone new who then opens the door for something completely different. So, a lot of my biggest successions have come from some of my biggest challenges I've faced. So no, I wouldn't say that I would do anything differently. I just would move faster if I could have in any sort of way, because again, I'm obsessed with time.
I think it's fascinating that you're obsessed with time, but I mean, without alluding to your age, I mean, you're like under 30. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of time that's particularly left. And I would say that you're leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. So I want to kind of talk about where is this entrepreneurial insight coming from? I mean, we talked about your parents earlier, but we didn't really talk about what either one of them did. Were either one of them entrepreneurs by chance?
So my mother was at a younger age. She didn't own her own company. It was back at that time, this was huge. It was paper construction for office supplies. And she did very, very well. My father, he just sold it actually a year and a half ago, a sweeping and construction paving maintenance business. So my father, they started in Chicago and then they moved over to New Jersey. When they did that, my mother's company was in Chicago. My dad moved to New Jersey to take over the family company, which was very, very small at that time. My mother obviously came, they had their first child together. And so she tried to maintain the company. And at that time, you're a woman-owned business and you don't live in the same state. And this is 1987. So that's not normal. My mom would have to go on, like, find the papers, figure out what the weather was there. So she knew what she was talking about. So, I mean, the girl hustled. And then finally, my dad was like, all right, like, you can relax. I've got us handled. You have 2 children. Maybe we'll try for a third. Why don't you make that your job from here on out? And my dad supported the family financially moving forward. I am a wonderful surprise. They tell me my brother is 8 years older than me and my sister is 11 and a half years older than me. So I think that might be the stem of the leaps and bounds ahead.
So, I mean, I'm happy you brought up Gabe Jr. So is he in the family business by chance, or is he doing something similar to what your dad kind of grew him up in?
So my dad took over the company when it was only a sweeping business with 4 sweepers, and he grew it to 90 employees. And I honestly can't remember the number of sweepers before my brother came in. My brother came in, he increased revenue, I think within his first year by 35%. That was, though, my father would not let this boy come work for him when he graduated college. He had to go get a Series 7, then he had to go get a job at Merrill Lynch, and he had to suffer there for a year or two until my brother finally booked a interview with my dad through his HR. Didn't even tell him. and had an hour presentation as to why he should be hired. And then my dad finally brought him in, put him in the worst positions possible with the lowest pay until he continued to prove his value. And yeah, he grew it so big that they were blessed with a beautiful opportunity from a private equity company that came in and invested into it. After that, my brother took the small portion that my father had given him and reinvested back in. Ironically, they also bought all of the companies in the state of Florida. So now I have gravitated them all down to me, and they all live here now. And my brother is now running the company that bought them out. He's helping run it, and my father is enjoying retirement.
So, I mean, I bring all that up to say, like, you're coming from a background to where entrepreneurism, it's in your blood. I mean, obviously it goes in through and through, and that's why you are as so successful and as effective as you are. So that kind of leads me to, if you could define yourself, right? I mean, obviously we're talking about who you are as an individual, just by using 3 to 5 words. What would those 3 to 5 words be?
Strong, motivated, stamina, crazy, grounded. Two very paired words.
So, I mean, I could definitely see the grounded aspect of it, because I mean, obviously, if you're doing the 5 minutes a day, you're writing down in your journal, which kind of leads me to you being a studious individual, right? I mean, obviously, you're studying your trade, you're making great partnerships, you're advancing. If you can kind of think about books that you would like to recommend that you read on this journey to a listener, which would those books be?
Oh my gosh, The Greatest Salesman, and oh wait, I need this second one to come to me. It is brilliant, and it's not going to, but I know the front of it is yellow with red and thick words. Oh my gosh, but The Greatest Salesman is one great one. And The Untethered Soul.
Okay.
And The Secret.
Those
are 2 old ones, but they don't get old.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I could definitely see The Secret is bleeding through your pores left and right. So I definitely appreciate that. So kind of still talking into the intellectual pillar, right? So, I mean, obviously you read books, you have the back end from your parents and even your brother to be an entrepreneur. You said you wrote, I think, an 18-page guide. When are you particularly going to release your first book? Because I mean, obviously that's the direction you're heading in, right? So
yes.
Is this, I'm listening. So is this something on the table, or is this something that you're writing? Like, what's going on with that?
It is deeply on the table. It is actually on my list to do when I hang up with you today. I am trying to figure out if I'd like to start with an overall ebook addressing the 6 pillars of wellness and then progress eventually into each pillar and creating an ebook from there. Or if I want to right off the bat create one ebook per pillar and start there. I will, of course, be creating a general basic physical ebook as well, just for like fitness aspects. And another one that I'm very, very passionate about creating, and I've been doing this for quite some time right now, is a form tips ebook. Form is everything, quality over quantity. When I tell you, the only things my clients say to me is, like, when they're working out on their own, if I give them a virtual session or something, they hear me screaming in their ears, like, flex your toes up. It's just so important. And so I've been writing every single form tip that I've been giving out to my clients for the last 3 years. I mean, this has to be like a 30-page document by now. So I want to finalize that. I want to put it into a book form and categorize it so people can register it easily, and it's not just a bunch of different form tips spread out. But it'll game change people's training abilities. I mean, proper form is really what people are lacking when they hit injury or pull a muscle, or somewhere is too tight and somewhere is too pulled. It's usually alignment.
I think it's fascinating because I'm sitting here and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and based upon your content, I would say at least a fifth of all your content that you post is food related. And I was like, is she gonna say recipe book? Is she gonna say recipe book?
Well, I have the ebook. I've been using the nutrition ebook as a big incentive for subscription sign-ons. It's hard to make a first move on yourself. And it's very nice when something is pushing you to. The ebook, the 18-page nutrition guide that I said individuals have access to when they purchase a one-on-one customized plan with me, I sell that for $400. So that is being given to anybody who signs on to a new subscription service. That is only $30. So you get to work out for $1 a day every month, and you have a free nutrition guide that you can follow. I like to use that as incentive. We will definitely be progressing along with more recipes and things along that line. But my biggest issue with that, and I want to do it strategically, is even though I'm giving you all these recipes, you still need to figure out how to properly utilize them and place them into what day. And what day should you have pasta on the same day that you're having the chicken burger, because it's a bun and it's carbs. So I want to make sure that that is clearly understandable for the reader, because we have so many different fads and things being false interpreted, and I don't want to fall under that.
All right. So moving on to another pillar, I want to make sure that before this show is done, we cover every single pillar. And I think this pillar is definitely one of my favorites, and it's definitely interesting, like the conversation we're about to have. So first and foremost, we want to talk about the emotional pillar. And I want to start off this pillar with Charlie, the fluffy ball of innocent energy, as you called him. So I want to kind of talk about, like, what is this emotional pillar? How does someone kind of even relate to it? And does someone need to have like a golden doodle to have it?
The emotional pillar can be anything that just makes you happy. Before I had Charlie, the 60-pound rambunctious golden doodle that has turned mine and my boyfriend's life upside down, I would call family, I would call friends, I would go to the beach, and I would ground my feet. I typically still do those things when I'm fulfilling my emotional pillar, going on a long walk with him, but now I'm just knocking out 3 birds with 1 stone. This boy is the happiest little puppy. You scratch him behind his ears and his mouth just goes he's just so happy. It's like talking to a human. Like he wants to say something so bad, but it just won't come out. And seeing, it feels like, I have a niece and a nephew as well. If they definitely fulfill that pillar, and seeing the world through their eyes, no harm, no foul intent coming from, maybe someone who gave them a look, and they just want to make sure you're okay and everything's good. And they were at the beach with my puppy the other day. My puppy broke out of the leash, ran into the water, which he never does, and swam all the way to them because he was so petrified. Wow. They weren't okay. If that isn't pure, innocent love, then I don't know what is.
Okay. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right? So I'm happy you brought up your boyfriend, Michael. So I get Michael, obviously, I don't think he's going to be jealous at all of Charlie, right? But I want to talk about, like, you've kind of found someone that not only supports you, but is also equally an entrepreneur as well. So I want to kind of talk about, how did you guys get connected? I think you guys found each other when you were in university in Florida, right?
Yeah, so we were both at school. We were actually living our own lives separately. Mutual friends would go out a bit here and there. And then I was graduating. I wasn't sure if I wanted to move home, what I was going to do. And he's a jet broker. So he hopped on one of his owner's planes that day and reached out to me to get a drink. I hadn't talked to this kid in like a year, but I was like, all right, I'll pick his brain. He convinced me to move back to New Jersey. I spent the whole summer on the boat, enjoying life with him. I was getting my nutritional certifications as I finished college, and just wanted to get that out of the way before I started job hunting. And then COVID hit, and he looked at me, I think like a week before that, and was like, I want to build an empire with someone, and I want that someone to be you. And I think that was the sexiest thing anybody has ever said to me. And a week later, I was like, okay, ask me out. And now it's been 3.5 years, and we both work a lot, but we both understand each other, and our flow, it just wouldn't function with anybody else. It really wouldn't.
Mm. So I'm gonna let you into to a little secret, right? So you're a Virgo. My wife is a Virgo, right? Michael is a Sagittarius.
With
I'm a
that,
Sagittarius.
we don't, they don't work together.
Well, somehow, some way, in today's world and society, it's like a perfect blend. Like everything you're describing, you sound exactly like my wife, and I sound exactly like Michael. Like so, I mean, it's one of those things. When I was doing my research, I was just like, "There's no way." But and I'm like, "Okay, I got to find out his birthday." So I'm looking, and I'm like, "There's no way." And then sure as hell, he's a Sagittarius. I was like, "You got to be fucking kidding me." So just to say, kind of like the opposites definitely attract, but I think the synergy comes into like the entrepreneurial spirit. So I want you to kind of talk about that for a minute. How has it been beneficial for both of you guys being like-minded in that entrepreneurial endeavors that what you're doing? How much does that support you and make you grow even bigger?
So when I'm weak, I want to be coddled, but I don't. Like my inner me wants to be coddled and held, but I want to be pushed. I want to be told to keep going. And he's the same way. And that's what we do to each other. When one of us is tired, like we motivate each other. You know, a few weeks ago, he was having a bad week, wasn't getting up before like 7:38, you know, playing video games sometimes in the middle of the day. Very unlike him, but just a bad week. And immediately, you know, I took some gentle approaches and then I was like, okay, you need to get up tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the morning. You're in the gym. Your gym program is assigned on the app. Get up. Let's go. I don't want to hear it anymore. And even with me, I have endometriosis, not diagnosed surgically yet, but it's been a very painful experience and tough on the both of us. And I cry a lot on my floor, just in pain, just trying to get through it. And even like, maybe this sounds a little harsh, but I love it. He doesn't let down on me. He doesn't let down on me. If I have a client, like he will still push me to say, all right, can you make it? And he makes me second guess myself. And like, he helps me tap into that part of my brain that, you know, can say, yes, I can turn this switch on and keep going. He helps me fight.
And I think like rolling with the punches, I think you just kind of fell right into number six, right? The spiritual pillar. And that's kind of what you're describing. I think one of your statements that you made that was definitely a phenomenal one was like not living to work, but living for you. And you did a whole video about first thing that you need to do when you wake up is live for yourself. When you're doing your work, it needs to be for you. Everything needs to be for you. So I want you to kind of talk about like how everything that you just described falls into that spiritual pillar and what does living and working for you really mean to you?
So anyone can have that living for you aspect. It doesn't need to be the morning. I say the morning, but it doesn't need to be. If you find that you're an afternoon person, whatever works for you, great. For me, I get up in the morning, I do my 6 tasks in the morning to ground myself. And these 6 tasks are, I get up, I breathe, I say my reasons why. So I'm doing what I'm doing because it makes my people feel alive. I'm doing what I'm doing because it makes me feel alive. And I'm doing what I'm doing because it makes the world a better place. Then I breathe 5 times, big deep breaths. Then I open my heart chakra. So I put my arms out, thumbs this way, and I do backward shoulder circles. And I just breathe through that. And then I start thinking about my day, what needs to be done, how I'm going to accomplish it. So right there, I have about my physical by getting the arm rolls out, stretching, loosening up the body. I have my spiritual by saying my affirmations. I have my occupational by going through my day. And then I'll try to do a few things in the morning, play with the puppy. I have my emotional. If I have a second to do my Spanish, I will. But that is a nice wind down for me at night. And so these are all things that I practice that allow me to be at my best, because when I'm finishing my day, Michael, who is a jet broker, is not going to bed some nights until 3 a.m. because his flights in Europe are taking off. So he's starting his day as I finish at 11 a.m. And I need to be at my best because our communication and our lifestyles are very opposite in the summer specifically. And he could be cranky and I could be cranky at the same times. And then we're having no coincision, especially with all this pain going on. And that's what makes me feel grounded through all of this and strong for him.
I think it's definitely interesting hearing that. And I think one of the things that you said maybe about 2 or 3 times since we started this interview was kind of a segue that I didn't think we was going to go down, but you were talking about learning Spanish. But again, culturally, you're from Italian descent. So I want to kind of talk about like why are you trying to learn Spanish? Are you guys planning? You said Europe, so you guys planning to move into Spain? Like what's the immediate requirement for Spanish?
So this is actually very interesting and a very amazing cultural experience for myself. When I was 14 years old, my mother encouraged me or for our family to do a foreign exchange student program. She had done it with some French students when we were younger, but I was like just one, I think, when they did that. So this was a group of Spaniards, and it was kind of weird. Like you just picked out which person you wanted. And so I picked my girl out. She is to date my best friend. We were 14 years old. So she went through the program the first year. After that, that was it. It was just her coming to me going to her, us jumping on planes back and forth for months at a time. So I want to be able to go there whenever I want. And I want to be able, I've stayed there for a month and I learned it within like 5 days because you don't have a choice. And I was 17 and you're fresh, your brain's fresh, but I want to go back. I want to sit down with her family, have a nice dinner, be able to speak that. And I do live in South Florida. So a lot of people speak Spanish, and there is nothing that drives me crazier than when I feel like I can understand them. It's like Charlie, I said, when he wants to talk and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's me. That's me.
No, I think it's definitely fascinating. I mean, based upon what you just said, you're pulling in the emotional, right? You have someone that's overseas, and correct, is it Spain? Is what you're talking about, right? So she's in Spain, and then at the same time, on your occupational side, you have Sam, which also is fluent in Spanish as well. So it's kind of like you have the diversity in there, but at the same time, behind the scenes, it's all strategy, right? So I want you to kind of talk about like strategy, being that you are so young and you have so much going for you. Ideally, where do you see you and your company 20 years from now?
20 years from now, I would like the girl who I said I'm hoping to bring into my app to be running this whole show for me on my app, on in-persons. I would love for her to have people, all 6 pillar certified trainers working underneath her for in-person, and then her being able to run the app. And I want to be able to then building the app out into 6 different departments of the 6 pillars. So now we have a physical department, a nutritional department, and for our intellectual department, we're going to have an actual cognitive behavioral therapist on staff. So real resources that are accessible and the subscribers can access it. And it doesn't have to be all 6. You can choose which one you need. I want there to be departments that grow out like a tree. And I want to be strong and influential enough that people value the words I have to say on a stage and be able to get to them and help them achieve their maximum potential so they can make a difference in their life and elevate to whatever it is they aspire to achieve.
So I'm going to read into this a little bit based upon what you said and what we just talked about and all the elements that we talked about this entire show. It seems like you're going down a similar model what Sam has done, essentially franchising to a certain extent to what you're doing. Is that correct, or am I going in the wrong direction?
In a sense, I would almost see it as more of a brokerage aspect because my app it's already set. It's set for anyone and everyone to step into. All I need my trainers to do before they step in is go through a 16-week process of utilizing the app, understanding the app, and doing the 6 pillars of wellness themselves. And what I've noticed is it takes around 16 weeks to get to that 6 pillars every single day, consistently embedded in the subconscious. So once they are certified to that extent, then they can come in, they can utilize the platform. I have 700 pre-made exercise clips, and I'm sure by that point I'll have 5,000.
Yes.
So they can utilize that. If they'd like to make their own, I can take less of a percentage from them for utilizing their own videos. So it'll be more of a brokerage concept. I'm not entirely sure how the departmental side, for example, with the intellectual, that might have to be more of a partnership, being that I'm not a certified therapist. But it is achievable through a brokerage idea.
I think you just said something that kind of triggered to me, because I mean, obviously with your social media, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, and I'm saying like, why is she not on YouTube? And then you just literally told me why indirectly, that you have 700 pieces of content that are behind a paid wall. So obviously YouTube is not going to be the channel for you.
Hard. I know. Like the recipes, you could put the 700 clips up and no one knows what to do with them. Like I was saying, when you give someone 50 recipes, they don't know when and what to eat. So it is true. I could, but yes, for that reason is why I have not had a drive to get as into YouTube, but they do have the Reels option now. So I do need to assign my global operator to start getting involved with YouTube as well.
So, I mean, since you brought it up, I want you to kind of define what the hell is a global operator?
So a global operator, for lack of better words, it's a virtual assistant. I prefer not to call him that because he did go to, you know, another university and he got his degree to be a professional in marketing or something along that department. So I see him a lot more as than a virtual assistant. He lives in Pakistan. He supports his family. And what he does for me is all of my marketing posts. So I'll do my recordings, my edits. I'll tell him, you know, the topic, the idea of what we're trying to accomplish, and he'll get it out there for me just so that I'm able to focus on the day-to-day evolution of the company. Otherwise, I literally would have to stop what we're doing right now to click post on Instagram. So, you know, he helps with that. He helps with analytical reports, outreaching, making sure everybody's happy, everything along those lines. And he only started a few weeks ago and he is amazing. So I cannot wait to continue to grow with him.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's definitely wonderful. I mean, I always like the enterprise approach of working with people overseas because I always say it gives like the US, the Western culture, a leg up. So Pakistan, if I'm correct, is about 9 hours ahead. So I mean, like technically speaking, it's a complete day ahead. So by the time you go to sleep and he's up and he's doing what he needs to do, we're completely have no clue what's going on, and you wake up and everything's essentially done and ready to go. So it's definitely a great system. So I wanted you to kind of talk about like tools. I mean, since you're talking about that area of expertise right now, like what tools do you use on a day-to-day basis that you would not be able to do what you're doing without having access to?
My computer, my computer, my camera, and my tripod. If I'm cheating on Michael, it is with my tripod. I am everywhere with this tripod. Like my greatest enjoyment the other day was I got a new tripod that came in and it's this big. All you have to do is pull one thing and like it all elaborates. The kid just walked out of the apartment. He was like, I can't even listen to you talk about this tripod. But no, the tripod, the computer, the camera, my global organizer, and my 6-pillar certified trainer, Allie, she is handling my in-persons, a lot of them now, especially with me not feeling my best. She is a savage, man. Like I thought, you know, maybe she's like a little below me, equal. No, I think she's blown me out of the water now.
It's very cool when you find someone that's better at doing what you love doing, more passionate about what you're building than yourself at times. So it's definitely great to have that, right? So I want to kind of talk about like your ideal avatar, which we have not touched on yet. Like obviously you have people that are signed up for your service that are coming to you for information, coming to you for food choices, nutrition. Like who's the ideal person that does this and wants to work with you?
The ideal individual is usually around 25 to 40 years old, and it is a perfect mix of men and women. I've gone through phases where it's more men, more women. Right now, I'm at a perfect mixture of the both. And it is usually individuals who are anywhere from just graduating college to successfully into their career, looking to just usually every single person has just been enlightened on the functional approach to a healthier lifestyle, or they're talking about this time in their life when they felt their best. And it was when they were doing all these little healthy things that connected to them and were about them. And that's again, where the 6 pillars of wellness came into fruition as well, was hearing these consistent things from them. And it made me just realize like, there is nothing that makes anybody feel better than this moment. Oh, that has to do with their physical. This moment, that has to do with their nutritional. So, you know, primarily the demographic is people looking to achieve a healthier overall well-being through a functional approach that is sustainable, consistent, and wants accountability. I do have a younger demographic who wants to step into this world. And that is where the inspiration to create the quarterly challenges came in, because the average person who is graduating college or high school and wants to focus on those things doesn't have a ton to throw out towards their physical well-being when they need to afford school books or very normal things that are a lot more important in this sense, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would think the only thing I would add to that, even though this is the first time I'm meeting you, I would say it has to be someone that is reflective of yourself. And I would think the key word would be someone that's highly ambitious. Because again, like the way you're staging it, like there's requirements and there's deadlines and there's things that need to be met. Like not necessarily a quota, but if you're going to say you're going to apply yourself to these 6 pillars, you can't half-ass it and just do 3 and walk away. Like you have to do all 6. So the only way you can get to that level is someone that's going to be dedicated and ambitious to, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but would you agree with that statement?
I half agree. So you are right. So they do have to be dedicated to their journey, because the difference between an in-person journey versus a virtual journey with me is you need to show up for yourself. I'm not calling you. I'm not on the other side of Zoom. Like you have your linked videos together, all about you right there. You just click play. So you do have to have the accountability factor and be dedicated. But in terms of the requirements, if there's anything I do, it's err on the side of caution. You should never bite off more than you can chew. I have people who come to me, they're like, I want to do a fitness plan and a nutrition plan. I'm like, that's great. I want your money, but you're not going to do that nutrition plan for me for another 6 to 8 weeks, because you're not biting off more than you can chew. So instead of, being like, hey, here's your 6 pillars of wellness plan. You need to do all 6 tasks every single day of the week in your first week and do every single workout. No, let's do 1 task every single day. So physical on Monday, nutritional on Tuesday, spiritual on Wednesday, so on. Then we go back to that graph I created during your consultation. All right, week 1, you've gotten to every single one. This coming next week, I want you to get to 3 of them 1 time and the other 3 2 times. And then that's where the progression of the 16-week goal comes. So by week 16, you're doing all 6 pillars every single day, subconsciously. You're working out your maximum potential. It feels effortless. Everything you're doing is turning out amazing. You're dedicated. Now you're accountable. Now you're ambitious. So you build it with me.
So, I mean, with that, let's say the person that you're communicating with, the person that you're helping is an avid listener of this podcast. I want you to kind of distill some words of insight, words of wisdom to help them not only to stay focused, but to stay on track, not only in their health, but in their general business success.
Okay. So I think the biggest thing 2 words, mindfulness and, well, I guess 2 words for this one, stop rushing. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, help me pick it back up here.
Yeah. So you're saying mindfulness. And again, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, because earlier on when I asked you about if you can go back and change anything, you would say do it a little bit faster. So with them being in the situation to where rushing, like how does that play versus that you want to go back in time versus helping them understand what they need to do to be successful?
I think that I don't want to rush, but I want to move faster. So the difference between that is, yes, I want to move faster, but I want to be mindful with every single thing that I'm doing.
Okay.
I don't want to rush though, because then you're getting the half part of me. The one thing I'd like to say to individuals that could help them personally and occupationally, sorry, I don't know why I lost my train of thought there, is life will continue to happen and it will continue to get chaotic. And when things are good and when things are easy, the things you're doing to achieve your goals and work on yourself, they're going to feel easy. But then you're going to get that one day that comes and your world's going to feel like it's falling apart. Honestly, today is one of those days for me. A lot of things are just frantically getting thrown in my face and I could not be dragged in 4 million directions. What did I do before this phone call? My 6 tasks. I feel so grounded, so good. And everything else is falling apart right now. But because of me doing that, I'm able to get through my day. I'm able to sit down after this and work on the ebooks that we talked about. I'm able to focus on the 4 clients that I have after this. And so I think the biggest thing to take from this is it doesn't need to be a huge grand thing. Just find a few things that work for you, whether it's going on a walk, calling one of your best friends, hanging out with your dog, making an unhealthy recipe healthier with alternative ingredients and enjoy it. Like literally anything. but those little things make you connected to you again. They give you a sense of how you are feeling, and regardless of what's going on in the outside world, and that will give you the ability to keep pushing through, whether life is good or whether life is bad. And that's where your consistency comes from. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice, is just look for a few things that make you happy and do them.
I think that moment, that second that you took, kind of made your statement so much more clearer, and I think it was a hell of a golden nugget, right? So I want you to continue to talk to this individual listener. How does that person get in contact with the Pillar Boss?
So my website is jacvitale.com, and my app is Jack Vitale in the Google and Apple store. You can access the website or the app, and there will be a schedule consult button in your face every single where you go on that device. And there will be times available on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays specifically. But if that does not work, you can email me at jack@jackvitale.com. You can contact me directly on any of my social media accounts. I will get back to you within 24 hours, and we can decide on a time that works for you. It's always about making your journey effortless. And if you do want to learn more about the 6 pillars of wellness upon what we've recapped here, there is a seven video series available on my website.
Very cool. So that kind of leads me into some bonus questions. And I've been twitching this entire episode to kind of see when I was going to ask you this question, right? Both your parents are like highly proud of what you've achieved in a short period of time, right? And obviously they're proud of your brother and what he's achieved in a short period of time. But for you as the individual achieving these different accomplishments, which one is the greatest one to you to date?
4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was a senior in college, and I hurt my elbow really, really, really bad. I had a turn of events that happened that caused me to fall on my elbow, and it just cut my bicep brachialis straight in half. It tore my ligament in my elbow. And the next morning, for lack of better words, I didn't want to go on anymore. I didn't want to do it. I was in a pretty poor relationship at the time. I knew I needed to end that. I needed to do a handstand program to finish my last class to graduate. And I was rehabbing professional athletes as my internship. So none of those things were going well. And then I still had to pick up the phone and call mom and dad. So easy way out was sounding nicer at that time, but I didn't. And my parents flew down that day. I think they bought like $1,000 flight each to get down within 4 hours to Florida, because I was at FAU at the time. And my mom pulled me into bed, and my dad walked in, and he said, "You have 72 hours to cry, and then you have to get up." And I told the story to someone like 5 months ago. And he said, "Well, what did you do after you got up?" And I was like, I have not sat down. And I think if I just wake up every day and keep fulfilling this passion, that is the greatest thing that I'm proud of. There's nothing else I want to be doing.
I think it's phenomenal. I mean, like, the more and more I hear about your parents, and more and more I hear about Gabe, it's kind of like, this is my guy. Like, I love Gabe. Like, he is not only a phenomenal business person, but he has raised you in a fashion to where you're self-sufficient at all turns of the life, right? So that's just great, and goes hand in hand with your upbringing. So that kind of leads me into, like, this is kind of like a time reference question, right? If you could spend 24 hours with anyone, and this person could be someone that's dead or from the past, someone that's alive, someone that you have not met, someone that you'd like to meet, who would that person be and why?
Oh, Elon Musk. I am. The way that man's brain works when he is talking, the way, like, you just see it, the gears grinding. It's like watching a computer and then it being projected out. I don't know what questions I have for him. I don't. All I know is when he is speaking, I know there is a deeper meaning to it, and I understand it. And I just want to sit there and honestly, maybe even smoke a joint like he did in the one podcast. Like sit there, smoke a joint, and just talk. Like, let me get to know you.
I think it's funny. I mean, earlier when you was talking about Mike, I could kind of definitely see some of your attraction in Mike is kind of relative to Elon as well. So
he's obsessed with him.
Yeah, yeah. So in my last bonus question, I mean, let's say today is your last day, right? And you have an opportunity to have like your final meal. What would that meal be? Considering that I know like you're a world foodie, right? Like you could have anything. What would that be?
My last meal. Ooh, can I have like, is it like a dish with 3 different things on it?
It could be 5 course.
Okay. All right. So I would want truffle fries. 100%. That is my favorite thing on earth. Oddly enough, paired with that too, I love sauteed spinach.
Okay.
Oh, you don't know my weakness for truffle fries. My mouth's kind of like watering now. And then probably a sushi roll. Like a nice cucumber avocado roll, or maybe a little salmon in there.
Okay. So we got 3 elements. So I guess we're just missing like the dessert.
I'm a more like salt, like I'd rather like all the fries. Like if I could, I'd just do like a plate here up to here, truffle fries all the way.
Truffle fries. I mean, like anyone that ever had truffle fries, they definitely know the addiction to it. I mean, it's pretty much that's why they don't sell them at fast food places, because it's above that pay grade for sure. So going into closing, man, I like to give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of Boss Uncaged podcast. So the show is yours. Now you're the host. I'm your guest. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me?
I would love to. What made you decide to create Boss Uncaged? I'm sure everyone asked you this as their first question.
I mean, it's been asked before. I mean, it just sums up to kind of like going back to your pillars, right? I mean, my business side was kind of working, but I worked myself to death, and I was forgetting about more so my mental and my spiritual and my physical side. So unfortunately, I had a stroke in 2018, and kind of like how I found my wife was through that vendetta, right? So she was in the hospital with me, and she had the conversation, much like what you had with Mike, and we came up with a plan. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to brand myself, like she said, like brand myself the way I've been branding companies for the past 18 years. And I took that opportunity to recover and literally made Boss Uncaged in February of 2020, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. So you ironically unlocked Boss Uncaged a month before COVID hit.
My timing could not have been better. Just to say it that way. Like it was almost like a premonition of some kind, but I literally started like it was less than a month. It started. I launched the first episode February 20, and COVID hit literally like around March 10th. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, that is one thing that I very strongly believe in. I just actually said that to Michael the other day was I believe there's a bigger picture, and there's little things that trickle down, and you can choose A or B, but then there's that point, and then there's A or B, and then there's that next point. And so what I'm going through right now, it better be damn worth it. So it looks like for you, it has been damn worth it.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call that I needed to kind of shift my direction. I think I was getting the arsenal for a war that I didn't even know I was going to be included in, right? So it was kind of like collecting all this data, all this information, doing all these different things just for me to be who I am right now and to be a host of Boss Uncaged, because I would not be able to have these levels of conversations if I wasn't so in tune to what I was doing before I became a podcaster.
So originally, this started as like let's do this. What if, let's see where this goes. Now it's your full-time job career. So, you might have some instances where that old occupational habits where you just wanted to keep grinding kind of creep back in. How are you sustaining all the aspects of your wellness and keeping that from occurring?
Well, I mean, one part is kind of like when we were talking about Pakistan is kind of like leveraging assets, right? Leveraging other people's time versus doing everything myself. That was the first lesson that I learned in that. In addition to that is sleep, because back in the day I didn't sleep. Like I should have had a tattoo that said I slept twice maybe 2 hours a day, if that at max. And that was my regular thing. Hence why I probably had a stroke, because I just burnt out. So I definitely get rest, I get sleep. Try to be as active as I possibly can as far as going for walk, hikes, hitting the gym, rock climbing. Anytime I can do something active, I try to do it. So ideally, I think I learned my lesson to a certain extent, but I more so look at the grains of sand are ticking. The clock is ticking for me and everyone else. So every day I'm trying to take advantage of that and create as much content and leave behind as much vision and purpose once my time is up.
And I can relate to that. That's why, you said before, you're so young and you're so worried about time. Anything can happen. And I want to know that I can go tomorrow, especially after the moment I shared with you. I want to know that I can go tomorrow and everything worked. I feel damn good about it. So, that's why I'm obsessed with it. And I can see that for you, as you're saying, in a sense, you want to leave that legacy. You want to leave Boss Uncaged out there. Like, if something were to happen to Jack Vitale, and I'm sure same to you, Sam better take over my company. He better come in here and make sure the 6 pillars of wellness thrive.
Yep.
Who would you pick, or what team would you want together to, continue to support the Boss Uncaged and help you elevate?
I mean, as a father of 2, by default, you would always want your kids to take it over. But in today's society, I think, kids don't fall into that spectrum right away. They may come in later on, much like what your brother did with your dad's company. But ideally, I've set it up to where I have so much different automations and systems at hand to where I could die tomorrow and I'll still be creating content for the next decade. So, like, literally, we have a backlog of a couple hundred episodes. Like, we're on season 6. So literally, if my wife just posts episodes by themselves,
your girl got you then. Your Virgo's on top of it. You have
Yeah.
nothing else to worry about.
Yeah. And besides that, systems, automation, AI. I mean, by default, literally kind of going into like my content strategy a little bit. It was one day I was messing around with like NFTs and creating different systems. And I was like, let me convert NFTs into like actual art, pieces of art for me to use for my actual campaigns. And I came up with like 8,000 different images. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me market my book through these images. So right now I have 2 posts every day for the next 7 years that are posting on autopilot.
That's incredible.
Like, I don't have to do anything. So if I did that with every different element that I'm doing, technically speaking, I could be dead and gone, and but you'll be seeing new content from me, kind of like a whole Tupac kind of thing. Tupac is he not here? But yeah.
So, technically this relates back to question 2. Yeah. Your whole thing is running its show and you can tend to you while it's doing its thing. So based on everything you went through, you completely pivoted, found the solution, and then uplifted your entire life to make it about you while changing everybody else's.
Yep. But it kind of goes back to the thing I said earlier. The ambitious side is like, well, since I have all these different things, it's kind of like, well, what else can I do? Like, how much can I put in without burning myself out to make sure that everything in Boss Uncaged becomes like a household name down the road? Because that's the idea here. Like, how do I get in communications with billions of people over decades to come?
Yeah, this is absolutely inspiring and beautiful. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this journey with you.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. I think today was definitely a hell of an episode. Coming into it, I was like, the fact that you have a system in place and it's based upon those 6 pillars. Some entrepreneurs kind of get systems and some of them don't. So for you to be that young and that influential in system building is definitely great. And I'm willing and staying around long enough to see you succeed and build upon that down the road.
Thank you. That is so appreciated. I really appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, same to you. I'm loving Boss Uncaged, and I can't wait to see who else you have on here.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. With that, the show is over. And again, I think our listeners are definitely appreciative of what you brought to the table today. And it's so insightful to kind of hear what you're talking about and, again, what you're going to achieve.
Thank you so much.
S.A. Grant, over and out.